What's up, guys? If you remember back in May, I did a top 10 from January to April of this year. And now we're going to repeat that process. We're going to do May to August top 10 horror movies. And I have 14 for you, okay? Because we're going to do everything that I've seen, all right? So anyway, let's get started. What's up, guys? Welcome to part 2 of the 2024 ranking. Boy, has this year been a freaking knockout for horror. And that's why I did this, because early in the year I was like, damn, we've had a lot of really good horror movies already, and it was just April. So I came up with this idea. Every 4 months, I'm going to give you pretty much a ranking of everything I've seen in that 4 months. So you will not see anything from January to April. This is all stuff from May to August. And I have 14 movies that I've seen. I'm going to rank them. I did have to cut it off. I did not get to see Blink Twice, so you won't see Blink Twice on there. I did just see Stream, and I just reviewed that. That's going to be on the next list too, because there's just so many. So yeah, so you won't see Stream, you won't see Blink Twice on this list. Those will be on the next list. Also, the Megan Fox movie Subservience. That's not going to be on here either, because that technically comes out September 3rd. All right, so yeah, anyway, let's get started with this. Like I said, 14 movies. Number 14 in last place of everything I've seen is going to be Tarot. This movie was absolutely atrocious. This might be in my bottom 3 of the entire year, and I will be doing a full combined list at the end of the year, so you're going to get a lot of top 10s at the end of this year. But Tarot, it just is the biggest cliche in horror that you can imagine. It's like using no creativity whatsoever. Let's just follow every single horror trope that's out there that exists. This movie is just very frustrating, because I do like the idea of, tarot cards. And that's the new thing with Blumhouse. Let's take every faction of society or job prospect or even religious belief and turn it into a horror movie, And that's what they do with tarot. And it is an interesting idea, taking the tarot cards, and what if you could make like a horror movie out of that? Every kill is a jump scare. You have Ned from the Spider-Man movies being Ned. That guy's going to play Ned in every single movie, and he does the same thing in here. And I'll even say it right now, I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending of this movie, I was just like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. This is stupid. Number 13 is The Exorcism with Russell Crowe. I had a feeling about this one. I believe it was filmed like maybe a couple of years ago, and it was just released. I do like the idea of a horror movie that takes place on a movie set. We've done that a few times, which is kind of cool. And it is cool that this is directed by the son of one of the actors from The Exorcist, Father Karras. That aspect is cool, and I think I would have liked more of a behind-the-scenes movie about The Exorcist and make that a horror movie. I think that would have been more compelling. I think this movie was just very forgettable, if I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, because I just saw the movie I think maybe a couple of months ago, and I can't really remember too much of it at all. I just remember it being really bad and not liking it. And, that's an important quality about any horror movie. There's certain things in great horror movies that will never leave your head. Like, say, the decapitation scene in Hereditary, right? That'll be there for life. There's nothing in The Exorcism that is going to be... There's one scene where Russell Crowe, he's like levitating, and that was an interesting scene. But, the whole movie shouldn't hinge on one scene. But it is unfortunate. I think it just falls under that exorcism movie trope. Most of them are really bad and cliche, and none of them live up to The Exorcist, ironically. Number 12 is The Watchers, the Ishana Shyamalan movie. There's always one horror movie that's just really, really, really boring, and that's what this movie was. It's just extremely trotting and boring, and it just kind of pushes along, and it's got some lofty aspirations in the final act. If you're not really into, and I'm not going to spoil it, what they're doing in the final act of this movie, then it's going to fall on its face for you, which it did. Beautifully shot movie. I'll definitely give it that. And I do like, it's definitely a Shyamalan premise, where the 4 characters in a room, kind of like Knock at the Cabin, which I thought Knock at the Cabin was really good. But this one, it doesn't deliver any real scares. The reveal of the creatures isn't really that interesting. And there's just nothing to like run to your friends about concerning this movie and say, God, you got to see that. As far as Ishana Shyamalan's career, at least she got her feet wet and she got a horror movie under her belt. And I think there are some fans of this movie, but I didn't really hear anybody, touting it one of the best of the year. Which coincidentally, number 11 is Trap. Man, this one really falls on its face in the last half of the movie. Josh Hartnett's back, which we all love Josh Hartnett to death. But there were just so many scenes in this movie, and I guess in terms of like security. But I'm your suspension of disbelief guy, okay? I can let a lot of stuff pass. But then there were some situations in this movie that were just so baffling and stupid that it was hard for me to let it go. Because this is one guy that's got to outwit and outsmart, an entire police force and SWAT team. And I'm not saying there's not dumb cops out there, because that's why great documentaries are made on Netflix. Tons of dumb cops out there. But when you have this many of them and everybody's looking for that one guy, then that's hard to believe. But then that's not even my biggest problem with the movie. It's the second half when it just gets really weird, and he's like intercepting Shyamalan's other daughter, and the whole movie felt like a concert, and I wasn't there for a concert. So if you're a massive, and I mean a massive Shyamalan fan, then you probably liked Trap, because we all forgive our favorite directors, right? I do too, okay? But Shyamalan can be frustrating to me. He really can. I'm always rooting for the guy, and when he does make a great movie, he really sends it home. And he has some of my favorite movies, like freaking Signs and Unbreakable, and Sixth Sense, I think, is genius. But this was another just, throwaway, and it really was heartbreaking, because I love Josh Hartnett. He is good in the movie, though. To give it some credit, I will say Josh Hartnett, his acting is, irresistible. Number 10 is The Strangers Chapter 1, and if I'm being honest with myself, this is actually worse than Trap, but for some reason I put it higher. I don't know why. Maybe I like the premise of The Strangers, but it's pretty much a remake of the original, but a very, very, very watered down version of it. Because the original Strangers, man, it had some really violent scenes in it, and it did not hold back, whereas this one, it felt like the light version of that. These two characters were dumb as shit. It felt like the CW version of The Strangers, and I hate to say that in a bad way, because CW does, there's a certain audience for that, right? But I don't want it in my Strangers movie. I am curious about part 2. This is going to be a trilogy, so maybe they can win me back, right? So I'm definitely curious to see what happens, and that should be coming out pretty soon, right? Number 9, and this is where I start liking the movies somewhat, is In a Violent Nature. I think this is the movie that was the most promising. I love the way it was directed. It has one of the greatest kills I've seen in years, with the yoga kill. Like, they'll be writing about that kill for, decades. It's a really, really great kill, and if anything you take from that movie, it's that kill. It's freaking awesome. But it does get a little sluggish, the guy just walking and we're following him. It's a cool idea, but it suits a short more than it does an actual hour-and-a-half movie. There are some interesting elements to the killer, and you get to see how he gets his fireman's mask. But I think the final act, they didn't really know exactly how to send it home. And so it doesn't really land as well as it should. But there was definitely some promise in this movie for sure. Number 8, The Crow. And guys, I enjoyed aspects of this movie. Right out the gate, Bill Skarsgård, I love that he didn't copy Brandon Lee. I love that he poured his heart and soul into this. And he does save the movie, in my eyes. The villains are shit. The villains are horrible in The Crow. But how dare I say I like one thing about this movie? How dare I give it a 3 out of 5? There were a lot of people in my comments, and by the way, half of them probably didn't even see the movie. But, I get it. A lot of people are angry that this movie exists. I'm not that type of person. I do think that maybe Brandon should have reserved the name Eric Draven. I look at it as no different than the other Crow sequels, if I'm being honest, right? And it's the second best movie, and that doesn't say much because it's a pretty bad franchise. The only movie that's really good, even like really good, is the first movie, and the first movie to me is like a masterpiece. But the sequels, for a variety of reasons, are pretty bad. Pretty bad. And I can get some enjoyment out of City of Angels and Salvation. You know, there's even some like elements of greatness in those movies, like the atmosphere and the cinematography in the City of Angels is freaking phenomenal, and that can hold your attention. This movie, it did the right thing by getting better as it went along, and it keeps hold of you. It is slow, though, in like the first, I'd say 30, 40 minutes of the movie, and it takes a while for him to fully get the makeup. But I didn't really need that after I watched the movie. You know, the lesson I learned is that, you know what, he became the Crow when he needed to fully become the Crow, but he's still the Crow even before he puts on the makeup. I'd say maybe 30, 40 minutes into the movie. You know, if anything, guys, I'm looking forward to giving it another watch, and I'll definitely buy this one. Okay, now I still do not own Wicked Prayer. Number 7 is Maxine. I like Maxine. I rate it like a 3.5 out of 5. I think there's some good elements, but it is the least favorite of the trilogy for me. I much prefer Pearl, and definitely much prefer X, which X was my favorite movie of that year. This is, like you see, somewhere in the middle. It's not the greatest thing ever. There are problems with Maxine, I think. I don't think it goes full on like the other two movies. I do think Mia Goth is pretty awesome as the character, but I think the big problem with this movie is the final act. I think the final act gets a little... it doesn't live up to the potential, I guess. It's the logical final act, but in terms of this movie trying to be like an 80s slasher, I think maybe they should have went a different route. And I do think that it should have kind of intertwined a little bit better with the whole Night Stalker. You know, I think this movie was the one that disappointed me the most, even though I still liked it. This was my most anticipated movie of the year, you know. Massive fan of this franchise. So it just didn't live up to the potential that I wanted it to. Okay, now we're getting to the really good. Number 6 is going to be Infested. If you remember earlier in the year, we had Sting, the spider movie. Well, this is another spider movie. Very different, though, because there are literally like thousands of spiders in this one. Kind of reminded me of what they were doing like with Kingdom of the Spiders from the 70s with William Shatner, but like more of a modern day type deal. And I believe this is a French movie. These spiders definitely give you the heebie-jeebies and they get under your skin. I don't think the characters are that likable in the movie, but I think maybe that suits the plot better. Yeah, they're just characters. I think they have the best intentions, but they keep getting themselves in trouble. And then they got to deal with these spiders. But boy, does this movie never stop. You know, it's pretty much full force, especially once it gets going. And, the visual effects, of course, there's going to be CGI in this movie. We say that like it's a bad thing, but CGI, I think, has been a really great thing at times, especially for movies like this. But the more important thing is it does feel realistic. You know, that this will definitely get under your skin when you watch it. And it'll definitely make you afraid of spiders. You won't ever want to be near a spider again. Number 5, Odity. And I'll say from here on out, guys, all these movies are fantastic. We got 5 movies in just the middle of the year countdown. But Odity was a big surprise. Definitely feels like a more lower budget, but there's a lesson here that, you know, you could have a really low budget movie, but if you have a really great story and you got a capable team of delivering that story, then it can still be a home run, and that's what this movie is. Really great characters. I loved the main character who is blind. You got some scumbags in this movie, which is always fun. This is definitely a movie that'll get you talking after you watch it. But the actress that plays the blind character, she plays 2 characters in the movie. She plays also the character's sister. I'm not going to spoil anything, but man, I loved the creepy nature of this movie. There's this like wooden doll that'll definitely make you lose sleep at night. This is one of the scarier movies of the year for sure. I don't get scared by movies. I know we've had that discussion before, but I'm saying I know when a movie is effective at being scary, and this one definitely is. But one of my favorite final acts of the year too. Number 4 is Cuckoo, and boy, if you're wanting that just out of left field, chaotic, wild, even in plot movie, then Cuckoo is definitely that movie for you this year. Hunter Schafer is excellent in this. But also, you know, and I didn't really prop him up enough in the review. Dan Stevens, man, talk about a phenomenal actor, doing, I think, 3 big movies this year. But man, he might be the actor of the year in terms of quantity and also quality. But I loved his performance. I believe he's playing a Russian character. Man, the guy can deliver an accent like the best of them. You know, in a league of his own. But Hunter Schafer's our main character, and she just does a phenomenal job in this. Losing her mind. She's got these parents, the father and her stepmother, which that plays a factor in there. And she just doesn't want to be with them. You know, she's the angsty teenager, right? But then all this wild, crazy shit starts coming at her. And then, there's some great body horror elements in this movie. And this will definitely be the plot that'll get you talking this year. And you might not understand it completely, you know? It'll definitely bake your noodle. Okay, top 3. Here we go. Number 3, and boy, these 3 might be the top 3 of the year when it's all said and done. But top 3. Number 3 is Strange Darling. Probably the biggest surprise of the year for me. It really just came on the scene like a force. Like one day you didn't hear nothing about it, and then the next thing everybody's talking about Strange Darling. All my my friends, my YouTube friends were like messaging me, dude, have you seen Strange Darling? You got to see it. It's so cool. Yeah, this was really small cast, but you got Willa Fitzgerald and Kyle Gallner carrying most of this movie. This is your psychotic horror movie of the year. Never lets up. I'd say it keeps you guessing. But I think a lot of people were like, I called this movie from a mile away. And I don't think that's really the point of the movie. Yeah, you're going to probably figure out what's going on in this pretty quickly. But to me, it's really just the chaotic nature of the story, how it is partitioned, because it's not a linear type movie, and that's done for a reason. And I think that alone keeps you on your toes. Keeps you guessing. You might guess who's who, but you still won't be able to guess where it's going, because they kind of Tarantino it, put different timelines in the story at different points. And that sounds kind of frustrating, but it's not at all. The movie plays out beautifully. And man, Willa Fitzgerald, I don't like using this term lightly, but Oscar-worthy performance. Wow. She won't get nominated, calling it right now. If she does, it's a nice surprise, but her performance, I guarantee it stands up to some of the finest acting performances you'll see this year. There's especially one scene where it's just jaw-dropping. Loved the final act of this movie, too. Unpredictable. Number 2, Alien Romulus. I am an Alien fanatic. This is going to be a controversial opinion. But, this is, to me, like the third best Alien movie out of the bunch. I know this day and age we have a problem with fan service, and we have a problem with harkening back. But this movie is pretty much presented as a love letter to the entire franchise. And I think how you handle that is what's important. And I think Fede Alvarez, I think he handled it beautifully, because he also offered some interesting new aspects to the whole Alien lore along the way, which is nice. And I think the callbacks didn't get in the way of the actual story. It's still a straight up alien movie with xenomorphs attacking humans. The android character in every alien movie, I think, is always kind of a question mark. What's it going to be? And I think this one presented some new ideas. They did some interesting things with the android character in this. I believe his name was Andy. I got to interview Fede Alvarez for this, and wow. I wish I could have interviewed him after I saw it, because it's amazing. I loved it, and I think it got back to form what we love so much about the Alien movies anyway, while still keeping it fresh. And then number 1, Longlegs. This is the trailer that trailer grabbed me immediately. I remember Jason from Sinister Cinema Reviews, he clued me in on this movie pretty early on in the year. Like they had such a great marketing campaign. We've seen a lot of these marketing campaigns for these horror movies, and not always do they deliver. I think this one delivered in spades, but it's definitely artistic. It definitely has that A24 stamp on it. Loved Michael Monroe's performance in this. Just a very unique character. This is that movie that I think really kept you guessing throughout. This is your evil movie of the year. Nicolas freaking Cage delivers a performance that I think is jaw-dropping, and I think it's really chilling. And I was surprised by that, because I was like, Nicolas Cage, in a serial killer movie? That could be good, but man, he really went for it. He always proves himself. Just when you think, what else can Nicolas Cage do, he delivers a performance like this. And man, I love this character too, because there's a lot that we still don't know about the character. There's a lot that you could form in your own mind about this character's past. So I love when they don't spell everything out, but they definitely kept it creepy. The stuff with the dolls really got under your skin. Osgood Perkins, he's definitely a director that's high on my radar now. I loved Blackcoat's Daughter, and I think he even topped himself with this. So yeah, that's it, guys. Ranking the 14 movies that I've seen for May through August. All right, so let me know your rankings of, you could do May through August, or you could do just the entire year, what you've seen so far, okay? But I'm looking forward to hearing them. I will be recording non-horror too, because I have at least 10 movies non-horror wise that I've seen. As soon as I get my voice back, because this is the fourth of 4 videos that I've done in this sitting. My voice is fried. So anyway, guys, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. And on Fridays, Woody Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Become a channel member. Buy me a coffee. And you guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Drum out.